Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Samuel and the others made their way towards the council chamber. The council was in session. 2 of his men guarded the door. "Let us pass." The 2 men, seeing who it was, saluted and opened the door. Roderick looked up. "What are you doing here? This council is in session. You can't just barge in here." "Gentlemen, I apologize for barging in like this, but some new and disturbing information was uncovered last night. I have with me one of the men responsible for an attack which nearly cost several of the town guards their lives. He is going to tell you all why the attack took place and what his orders were." They all looked towards the prisoner. Roderick tried to speak. Zachary, his main opponent on the council, shouted him down, asking him what he had to hide. Roderick swallowed and sat down. The prisoner started to speak. "My name is Bruce. I am a member of a group led by a man called Garth. Last night, we were given orders to attack a party returning to the priest's house. We were told to capture all the women, particularly Lady Isabel Blackmore. She was to be given to a man called Ebenezer. We were also told to capture any young boys. They were to be given to Roderick." There was uproar at this. Several council members were on their feet demanding to know exactly what was going on. Who was this Garth and the man before them? Samuel held up his hands. Slowly the room quieted. "That man there," he said, pointing at Roderick, "is in league with the known bandit, Garth. That man and his gang is known to be responsible for many of the crimes in this area. We have never been able to catch him. He was always one step ahead of us. Now we know why. Roderick has been passing him information. He also has a penchant for young boys." "Lies. All lies. You have no proof. All you have is the word of this bandit. Ask yourselves, why would this man lie? What would he have to gain? He knows he is a dead man. His former boss, and Roderick here, would soon see to that. He knows too much. I went, on the specific request of Roderick, to speak to Sir Douglas and Lady Isabel Blackmore last night. Roderick informed me that she was being held captive. When I arrived, they informed me that they were in fact married. The Lady Isabel was standing there with a sword, dagger, and bow. Now I don't know about any of you, but I have never heard of a kidnapper arming his captive. When we arrived and met with Sir Douglas and Lady Isabel, we were immediately attacked. It was only the swift actions of Sir Douglas and Lady Isabel, and she, by the way, accounted for a number of assailants herself, that we were saved. If not for them, we would now all be dead. I can only suppose that this was part of his plan to get this Garth promoted to the captain of the guard. This would have given Roderick total control of the council. After all, who can challenge him from a prison cell?" Roderick panicked. He looked left and right, then bolted for the door. He was stopped by the guards waiting there. Zachary got to his feet. "I think his actions confirm his guilt. I propose a motion of thanks to Samuel for bringing this to our attention. Take him to the dungeon. We'll deal with him after the meeting." Roderick was taken away. The council meeting descended into chaos. Shouts came from one man, and then another. It was obvious that the different factions were fighting for position. There was an argument over who was going to lead the council. Now, Zachary thought he should take charge. Unfortunately, he was not as popular as he thought. There were several others who thought they should hold the reins of power. In the end, it was decided they would allow Earl Tathlone to appoint a new leader to the council. That effectively meant that Ebenezer would be choosing the next leader. It was also decided that the allegations were so serious that only the Earl, or his appointed representative, could hear them. It was then that Samuel knew they had to leave. It was obvious that Ebenezer's influence was greater than any of them realized. Given what had happened, there was a good chance that Roderick would walk free. He looked at Bruce. The man's eyes were wild. He knew he was a dead man walking. If he stayed to give evidence, then Garth or someone else was sure to kill him. "Come with me," Samuel ordered. "Where are we going?" "Come with me and live, or stay here and die, your choice." They left the chamber. The men within too busy arguing and bickering to worry about a mere guard. He told the 2 men outside to come with him. He collected the other guards and made his way to the town guard office. "We have a choice. As you can all see, the problems here run very deep. I do not intend to stay. Chances are that Roderick will be released soon. You all know he likes young boys. If any of you value your children, think of that. If any of you wish to accompany me, you are more than welcome. Speak up now, for this will be your only chance." "What do you mean?" asked one man who had not been at the meeting. Samuel explained what had occurred and how the counselors had reacted at the meeting. There was a lot of discussion of what had gone on. In the end, around 6 decided that they would accompany Samuel. They made their way to the caravan's quarters. "Well, what have we here?" Douglas asked as he saw them approach. "We have decided to join you, if you'll have us. I don't mind the rest of you, but what's he doing here?" he asked, pointing at Bruce. "Things didn't go too well at the meeting. Roderick has more friends than we realized. They stalled the trial and the appointment of a new leader of the town council. It's time for us to get out. Bruce here realizes he's a dead man walking. His one and only chance of staying alive is to come with us. I know how you feel, but I ask you to give him a chance. If he puts a foot out of place, I'll kill him myself. Not happy, Samuel, not happy at all. He tried to kill us once. What's to say he won't try again? He's a bandit and a thief. He may try to harm the women or children. He turned to Bruce. Give me one good reason why I should trust you. Tell me why I shouldn't kill you, right here and now. The man was white. He looked into Douglas's eyes and saw not one drop of compassion. He swallowed. I can't. You are right. I am a bandit and a thief. Have been ever since I can remember. Needed to steal to get food. I got used to it, so I kept stealing. It's all I know. As for being a danger to your wives and children, I have never harmed a woman or child. I may have handed them over to Garth and others, but personally, I have never harmed them. I promise I will not steal from you, or any of your men, or this party. That is all I can do. Douglas put his face right up to Bruce's. If I hear just one complaint about you, just one, I will personally gut you. Do you understand? Yes, he stuttered. He understood, all right. He was so frightened he pissed himself. Douglas looked at Samuel and nodded. Samuel led the terrified man away. Shit, he's scary. I wouldn't want him mad at me, remarked one of the men who accompanied Samuel. That's him being nice. If he had been really mad, he would have just gutted Bruce. Here, without a second thought, Samuel informed them. Have you known him long? Asked one of the men, Luke. Yes, I have. He was inexperienced when I first met him, just starting out. That was 20 years ago. I trained him, we all did. He was eager to learn, always absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Now, he's the finest warrior I know and one of the most honorable people I've met. If he gives his word, he means it. If he says he'll take down Bruce himself, he will. Follow his lead, and you'll have no greater ally. He'll never ask anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. He leads from the front. That's just who he is. He was the best, his squad was the best. Now that we've joined him, we'll be the best, no matter what it takes. Douglas returned to the others. Samuel has brought some of the other guards with him. It seems like Roderick has more friends here than we realized. I think it's safer if we all fort up here at the compound, for now. We'll go back for our things, but nobody is to go out alone. We must consider this hostile territory from now on. For now, we will continue with our training. There's one thing. He has brought with him that man Bruce. He was the bandit who was taken to the council to make his allegations against Roderick. He has offered him a chance of a new life with us. I am not so sure, but I am willing to give him the benefit of doubt for now. I have told him that if I receive just one complaint, I will personally gut him. Hopefully that will keep him in line. They all returned to their training. A little later, Isabel came over to where he was training some of the guards. He had shown them the shields and how to use them. Now he had to convince them they would work. He gave the men spear shafts topped with rags soaked in red berry juice. He had 12 of them with the shields between 4 wagons, with 4 men defending each gap. He then had 10 men attack each gap. Every time the attackers were driven back, they could not get past. Every one of them had berry juice staining their tunics. So you see, stand firm and you can prevail. If you run, then you will die. They continued for the rest of the day. Isabel told him that she needed to go into town. He smiled, assembled a guard for her, and sent her on her way. She made an imposing sight as she made her way through the town with her bodyguard around her. She spoke to several merchants, making deals, examining goods, asking questions. All too soon, it was time to return. They then returned to the priest's house to collect their belongings. Thank you for all your help. It has been really appreciated. Not at all, Lady Isabel. You have been model guests, and one can certainly say things were never dull. No, please, when you return don't forget to call, will you? No, if we do return, which is by no means certain, we will definitely come and call. Isabel kissed him on the cheek, and the others said their goodbyes. The rest of the week passed off without too much incident. The town council were not pleased when they discovered Samuel had, along with a quarter of the town guard, joined the caravan guards. He explained his reasons. Most of them understood, but it didn't mean they had to like it. Roderick smiled in his cell when he heard this. He knew it would not be long before he was released. Then he would plan his revenge. It was the night before they were due to leave when they were approached by one of the merchants and his family. He spoke to the caravan master. Sir, I was wondering, how much would you charge to allow us to join your caravan? We have been watching your men train all week. We are very impressed with what we see. My wife, myself, and our children wish to visit my wife's parents in Bridgeport. We do not wish to leave our goods behind, in the event of any problems. I understand completely, Bartholomew. Nathan sympathized and said, These are troubled times, Bartholomew. Troubled times indeed. It will take a skilled warrior to get through to safety. Fortunately, we have several. Our captain has trained the finest company of guards I have ever had serve me. I know we will arrive safely at our destination. However, paying and supplying such a company does not come cheap. He thought for a moment. He would normally charge 2 crowns to allow such a group to join his caravan. It will cost 4 crowns. Have you loaded all your goods? Also, how many animals have you? The man swallowed hard. That was a lot of money. However, he had made inquiries with other caravans, and none of them had made him feel safe. He particularly did not like the way some of the men looked at his wife and daughter. He reached into his purse. You are correct, it is expensive. However, what price can you place upon the safety of your family? Yes, we have loaded all our things. We have 15 pack horses. He handed over the money. Come, I'll introduce you to Sir Douglas and Lady Isabel, and inform them that you will be joining our column. We leave at first light. They went to find their captain. They found Douglas, Alan, Isabel, Simon, and Peter working out with swords. Douglas had Simon sparring with Peter, while Isabel sparred with Alan. No. Keep your guard up. If you keep dropping your sword like that, you are offering your opponent the opportunity to come under your guard and run you through. You must keep your guard up. If he comes at you like that, then twist and move to the side. That way you can parry his strike like thus and counter with your dagger. Now again, they watched as the combatants tried again and again. Sorry to interrupt. Bartholomew here is to join our caravan. He is bringing his family and 15 horses. Very well. Tell me, how many are you? Have you or any of your family had any form of weapons training? Well, no. There's 4 of us. Myself, my wife, and my 2 children, Primrose, who's 14, and Hubert, who's 8. Very well. Tell me who is looking after your animals. 15 horses are going to be a lot of work. I hope you have enough feed and tack for them. Have you spoken to our blacksmith about shoes for them? The man looked horrified. None of this had occurred to him. He just wanted to get away from what he saw as an impending war. Can't they just eat grass? Not really. Most of the time, yes. However, when we stop, then the grass gets eaten rather quickly, particularly if we are not the first caravan through. You will need 2 sacks of grain per animal, per week. More if we have to hole up somewhere due to bad weather or bandits. I estimate it will take us 3 weeks to get to Bridgeport. You have 15 horses. These will need 45 bags of grain. A horse can carry around 8 bags. Either that, or a wagon. A wagon will need a team of at least 4 horses. If you are carrying everything on 15 horses, you would probably be better off with 3 wagons. You would get everything on 2 and be able to rent out the space in the other one. They all looked at Douglas in amazement. Just where did you get this information? Asked an incredulous Nathan. I've been a mercenary for the last 20 years. How do you think we get our things from one place to another? I was responsible for 30 men. I had to transport them, provision them, and train them. I had to make sure that we got from where we were to where we needed to be. I had to decide whether we needed wagons or pack horses. That would depend on the terrain we were traveling through and what our mission was likely to be. I have to know how much can be transported by each method of transportation, how much feed is needed, where we are likely to obtain it, and its probable cost. I use pack horses because I never know what terrain I'm likely to come across. For this journey, however, you will be better off with wagons. The roads are well traveled, it's dry, and there are plenty of stops along the way. We are going to Bridgetown. It should take 3 weeks. We will stop at Corvalet and Ballam's home. We have to pass through Ballam's Gap to get across the mountains. Then there's Wykefield, and finally, Combeverley. We should be able to get supplies and more goods at these places. It's Ballam's Gap, where we will have to be most careful. It's a well-known place for bandits. You've certainly done your homework. I'm impressed, Nathan told him. Where am I going to get wagons at this late stage? Wailed Bartholomew. We have 2 you can rent or buy. I'll swap you the wagons for your horses. I'll even throw in 20 bags of grain, Isabel told him. They all looked at her in astonishment. Where did we get wagons from? Douglas asked. Traders. What do you think I have been doing this last week? Sitting on my bum looking pretty? She turned her smile on him. He took her head in his hands and kissed her. It was a long and passionate kiss. You beautiful, wonderful woman. Just what else have we acquired? We have 5 wagons, 35 horses, and 10 head of cattle. You do want fresh milk on the journey, don't you? We have also employed 2 milkmaids and 3 cattle boys with their dogs to herd them. Cheese is made here, so we now have half a wagon full. That's not to mention the ale, weapons, and shields. You have been busy this last week. Yes, I have. It's the first time I've been able to use the skills I have. You've no idea how good it makes me feel. I would be delighted to trade the wagons. I was wondering how we were going to control all the horses. My wife and son will drive one, while my daughter and myself will drive the second. In that case, you had better get the goods transferred as we intend to leave at first light, Nathan told him. It was a busy time for them. The goods were transferred, and preparations made for the early start. Nathan looked back at his caravan as it made its way out of the town. It was the biggest caravan he had ever led. He watched as the guards marched alongside the column. They were the smartest, most alert guards he had ever seen. Horsemen rode up and down, acting as outriders. He had to admit it did look impressive. They traveled for 3 days. Each day they made good progress. The mood was buoyant. After 3 days it was time to stop to check for damage and make repairs. Everyone was pleased with how things were going. Douglas rode up and down checking on the guards. He was pleased with how they looked. He'd had only had a week to train them. He had stayed with spear and shield. They had continued to train each evening. He would launch mock attacks on the caravan. His men would form their defensive positions and drive the attacks off. Samuel was a godsend to him. His former mentor was instrumental in training his Old Town Guard, as well as all those within the merchant and support group. They were in danger of becoming competent. Each time they stopped, the locals would come out. Some came to gawk at the spectacle, others to trade. Each of the merchants would vie with his companions for the trade. It was in one of these unnamed villages that the first of the farmers had joined. He had seen the caravan arrive and asked if he might join with his wife and children. They were going to Corvale but were concerned about bandits. Nathan thought about it, then charged them a shilling. They gladly paid, knowing they would arrive safely. You know, Douglas, I believe that even if a man had no cargo he could still scrape a living, just going about the countryside offering protection to the peasants taking their goods to market. Yes, but if the lords really had the interests of the people at heart, they would run regular patrols and eradicate the problem once and for all. These are hard-working men and women who simply wish to sell their surplus produce. However, with the risks they run just to get to the next town, well, it's just not worth it. 'Tis better to let it rot in the storehouse than risk death, or worse, just to sell a few sacks of grain or a couple of cows. Nathan had to agree. They arrived in Corvale. It was a large and prosperous town bordering the river Cor. It was surrounded on 3 sides by high stout walls and a deep water-filled moat. There were 3 gates into the town. The 4th side was defended by the river. There was a ferry service that ran across to the far bank. Docks, wharves, and warehouses lined the bank. The town's prosperity stemmed from the caravan trade. There was also some waterborne trade, but this was limited as there were rapids downstream that made it unnavigable. No one as yet had come up with a solution. They entered through the northern gate. They made a fine sight in their surcoats, marching in step with their shields and spears. They made their way to the caravan quarter and were soon settled in. The farmer and his family thanked them and departed. There were secure warehouses to rent and stables for the animals. The goods were soon locked away and the animals cared for. It was possible to allow half the men leave to enjoy themselves in the taverns and brothels within the town. They would stay for 3 days. It was a time for resupply and for any needed repairs to be carried out. As always on these stops, there would be a good deal of trading. Some merchants would sell their southern-bound goods and buy good required up north. They would then join a northern-bound caravan, preferring a quick profit that to carry on with the dangerous journey south. On this journey, however, very few chose to leave. Several of the northern-bound merchants, upon hearing of the events occurring and the possibility of war, decided to sell what they could and return home. The local merchants had a field day. Nathan's caravan grew even larger. It was on the 2nd day that their company's reputation was given a substantial boost. Henrietta decided that she and her girls, Eleanor and Tabitha, needed some new dresses. David and Simon offered to accompany them. They had made their way to the cloth merchants and made their selections. They were making their way back, with David and Simon carrying their purchases, when 5 drunken guards from another company staggered out of a tavern. Well, what have we here?" exclaimed one of them. 3 beauties, just ripe for the taking. "Didn't anyone tell you it's not safe around here?" "Well, I'm sure we'll be able to take good care of you." "Yes, very good care indeed." The others laughed at this. "Please, let us pass," Henrietta pleaded. "Oh, we will, but not before we have a little fun." The leader sneered. "You really think those 2 boys with you can stop us? Go on, boys, run back to your mothers before you get hurt." Simon nodded to David. They dropped the cloth on the ground, revealing their staves. They both swung, smashing the knees of the braggart. He screamed and fell to the ground, both kneecaps shattered. The other 4 drew their swords and started to move towards them. Simon and David worked as a team, each protecting the other. One of the men seemed to be faster than his comrades, and he attacked first. Simon blocked his swing, while David hit the man in the belly. As he folded forward, Simon hit him on the back of the head. He fell senseless to the ground. The other 3 attacked. They fared no better. David and Simon ducked to the outside and hit the outer 2 across the knees. They screamed and fell to the ground. As they both received blows to the back of the head, they did not get up. The last one faced off against David. He seemed to ignore Simon. David blocked his blows while Simon moved behind the man. He brought his stave up as hard as he could, catching the man squarely in the balls. The man's eyes seemed to cross and lose focus. His knees buckled, and he fell to the ground. David swung his staff, connecting with his head. He did not rise. Simon went over to the first man that had attacked them. We are from Nathan's honorable caravan guards. We do not assault, we do not steal, and we do not pillage. We are honorable men. We also ensure that others do not assault, Simon stated, and brought his staff crashing onto the man's genitals. The man screamed, rolled onto his side, and threw up. Simon and David picked up the bolts of cloth they had dropped. I'm sorry, we seem to have allowed these to become dirty. Not to worry, I'm sure it will brush out. Thank you for protecting us. It was very brave, Henrietta told them. It was nothing. There was no way we were going to let anything happen to the most beautiful women we have ever seen, David said, looking at Eleanor. That's right, I'd never let anything happen to you, Simon echoed, looking at Tabitha. The girls looked at their mother, who smiled. They then proceeded to kiss their chosen savior on the cheek. Thank you for saving us. It was the bravest thing we ever saw, Eleanor told them. Yes, it was, echoed Tabitha. The two young men's chests swelled with pride. They seemed to grow at least 2 inches as the girls took their arms as they made their way back to the caravan. The news of their exploits soon ran around the camp. Douglas came over and asked for an explanation. Henrietta told him what happened. 5 drunken men tried to assault us. They wanted to assault us. Simon and David stopped them. Those young men made quite an impression on my girls. I must admit, I have never seen such bravery. They never hesitated for a moment. Those 2 took on 5 of them. They only had staves, the others had swords. Then they apologized for getting the cloth dirty. They are 2 young men to be proud of. That they are, Douglas smiled. It was a little later that the girl's brother and father came over to them. I wish to thank you, personally, for saving my wife and daughter. They cannot stop talking about how brave you were. I understand you defeated 5 of them with only your staves. Remarkable. Robert and I were wondering if you would care to dine with us tonight, and also if you would teach us a few moves as well. It would be a useful skill to master. We would be delighted to both dine with you and to teach you how to defend yourselves with a stave. We could teach your wives and daughters at the same time. Imagine the surprise of a bandit who suddenly had his head staved in by a girl. That's one of my advantages. They see a boy, they do not see an opponent. I like to surprise them, Simon told them. I'm sure you do, laughed Gordon. Nathan smiled at the man in front of him. What do you intend to do about it? 5 good men taken out. 3 of them may never walk again. Where am I to find the men to replace them? The man ranted. Douglas, hearing the commotion, came over. Is there a problem? He asked. The man turned on him and snapped. Who are you? Nathan intervened as he said, Allow me to introduce Sir Douglas, my guard's captain. Sir Douglas, allow me to introduce Ishmael. He is a caravan master. The men that were involved in the incident this morning are his guards. Do they live? Douglas asked. Yes, they do. No thanks to your men. They will take some time to recover. Pity. Did they tell you what they attempted to do? He demanded as he glared at the man. The man looked properly at Douglas for the first time. He saw the look on Douglas's face and swallowed hard. Well, they said they got into a fight over a misunderstanding. They didn't seem inclined to go into details. They wished to assault 3 members of our party. The 2 young men stopped them. Let them count themselves fortunate. Had I been there, I would have gelded them, then gutted them. I cannot abide assaulters. Douglas spoke slowly and quietly. The man blanched at his words. Yes, but still, the men that attacked our women, how old were they? How were they armed? My men? 1, a boy, really, were armed with staves. 1 young man and a boy, armed with sticks, took out 5 of your guards. You don't train your men very well, do you? Listen, for I will only tell you once. We are Nathan's honorable caravan guards. We do not assault. We do not rob. We do not break our word. If any man tries to attack any of our women in the future, I will personally geld him. Do you understand? Go and tell your men to leave all the women in peace. If they wish to visit a brothel, fine. If they try to attack a woman or girl in the street, I will geld them. One of the women they tried to attack is only 13. She's barely more than a child, herself. Your men can count themselves lucky they still breathe. The man stood there in horror at this. He looked at the man in front of him. He was in no doubt he would do exactly as he promised. Just then Henrietta and her daughters came by. Henrietta, a moment please. Allow me to introduce Ishmael. It was his men that tried to attack you today. Henrietta glared at him and said, Thank goodness for David and Simon. They were the ones who fought off those brutes who tried to assault us. I hope you punish them severely. They were so brave, said Tabitha, especially Simon. They were amazing. They only had staves. There were 5 of those men, you know. I hope they suffer for what they tried to do. Eleanor told him. Ishmael looked at the 3 women in front of him. These were no Tavern 304s. They reminded him of his own wife and family. I will ensure these men are properly punished. I apologize to you and your daughters for any suffering caused. So I should think. If they had managed to attack us, well, I shudder to think what the consequences would have been. Ishmael looked at the woman, then looked at Douglas standing next to him. If 2 of these could take out 5 of his, using just staves at that, he could imagine that the consequences would have been disastrous, for him at least. He turned to Nathan. I'm sorry for any unpleasantness today. Now I mustn't take up any more of your time. Good day to you all. With that, he nodded to each of them and left. I don't think we will have any more trouble here, do you? Douglas said. They all laughed. That evening, Simon and David were the envy of the entire camp. They got to have dinner with 2 of the most beautiful girls most of them had ever seen. They both sat with stupid grins on their faces as the 2 girls fussed over them as they served them. Gordon and Henrietta smiled as both boys sang Douglas's praises. Henrietta asked Simon how he had met Sir Douglas. He told her about his life as a stable boy, of how his mother had died, and about Felix. How Douglas had killed him, then taken possession of Felix's farm. Of how he had freed the slaves and returned the goods to their owners, and how he had rented the farm for $1 a year to its former owners. Henrietta thought her heart would break when he told them that his mother was the town 304, how she died, and how all alone he was. She could see why he idolized Douglas. He was the first man that had shown him any interest. She could see that he would emulate him as much as possible. This he had already shown by his actions. Henrietta turned to Simon. I bet you were glad David was there this afternoon, weren't you? Actually, answered David, I was glad Simon was there. He's probably the best one of us with a stave. There's not a man amongst us who'll go up against him. If there's a problem, then the person concerned has to spar with Simon until they beat him. So far, no one has. They all looked at this young man with renewed respect. He was a true warrior in the making. If you had been on your own, would you have tried to stop those men in order to protect me? Tabitha asked him. Of course, I would have for any of you. I would give my life for you in a heartbeat. I have given my word to protect you. Tabitha snuggled up against him and kissed his cheek. I'm glad you were there. I like it when you're around. She smiled at him. Simon felt his heart skip a beat. He held his breath, lost in her gaze. He swallowed and said, You can come and watch me spar tomorrow, if you like. I can't. I have my lessons tomorrow. I'm learning how to keep the accounts and how to write letters to other merchants. She sighed. I'm trying to learn to read and write, as well. I'm not having much luck with it. None of us are. It's a real struggle. Yes, I'm having trouble, too. Lady Isabel, Bishop Radcliffe and Carlos are all trying to teach us, even Sir Douglas. Peter is the one who's doing best. Nathan's asked him to help with the books, David informed them. I'll help you. If you come round after you've finished your sparring, then I'll help you to read, Tabitha told him. Yes, and I'll help you, said Eleanor, looking at David. David looked into her eyes and was lost. He said nothing, just stared at her. She really was the most beautiful, exquisite girl he had ever seen. Her parents looked at him and smiled. Her father had looked at her mother in the same way when they'd first met. Gordon cleared his throat. David blinked and remembered where he was. He blushed. Yes, I'd love to. Yes, after sparring. I'll be round then, both of us will. The girls giggled at this, and the boys blushed. They asked David about his life and how he had come to meet up with Sir Douglas and Simon. He told them that he had grown up on a farm. He was the youngest of 4 and knew he would never inherit. He would have to work as a laborer for his brothers or for others. He did not wish to do this. So, like many other young men, he had set out to make his own way in the world. He had found himself in a town. He did not remember the name. He got drunk and got in a fight. He was hauled before the sheriff. He was given a choice: join Lord Blackmore's army or go to prison. He knew how bad the prisons were, so decided to join the guard. It seems there were a lot of men recruited this way. He had to admit he was not the best soldier. He had a habit of slacking off, getting drunk, and just generally doing as little as possible. He explained how he, Henry, and Sirius were partners in crime. They would always be getting into trouble. At first, he could not understand why they were picked as the personal guard to Lady Isabel. They later found out why. They were to have been captured by Baxter Shieldsmith's men. Lady Isabel was to be brought to him. After the Baxter had finished with her, she was to be given to a man named Ebenezer. They all owed their lives to Sir Douglas. He then told them how that since they had joined Sir Douglas, they had all knuckled down to training. Being beaten by Simon had shamed him into training much harder. Simon beat you? Asked Tabitha. Oh yes. I thought I was better and didn't need the extra training. Simon whipped my butt. After that, I trained hard. As I said earlier, he's the best of all of us with a stave. Simon then asked why they were on the road. Henrietta explained that they were merchants dealing in fine wines and spirits. The Baxter had taken a shine to Eleanor and wouldn't take no for an answer. They had decided to leave. They had sold their business and all their stock. They would start again somewhere else, somewhere where the Baxter's influence could not affect them. Robert then told them he wished to train as a caravan guard. He did not want to allow his mother and sisters to be at the mercy of bandits, with no one to protect them. It was agreed. Simon and David would give them all lessons in how to defend themselves, and the girls would teach them to read. On their last day, they were all busy. Most of the women were out buying provisions. Samuel had, for the most part, taken over the training of the men. Douglas was talking to Nathan about the newcomers. "What do you know about these new men?" Douglas asked him. "Nothing, why? They look like our men did before I joined. Some good, some bad, and some just bullies with sharp sticks. Do you think we can rely on them if we get attacked? What are you worried about?" Balaam's Gap. Not every caravan gets attacked. I've been through there many times and not been troubled. We see them, yes, but sometimes they just stand on the ridge and look down on us, letting us know they could attack if they wished, but not today. That's what I mean. Everyone else tells us of the bandits there. How they stood on the ridge counting the number of guards, weighing up if it's worth the risk of attacking. Sometimes they send someone down to demand a toll for allowing them to pass. Most pay it. What happens if you refuse? Then you get attacked, mainly at night. You will find your horses stolen or your wagons sabotaged. If you cannot move your goods, then you have to abandon them. They may just set them on fire out of spite. I see. I think we'll have to do something about that then, won't we? Douglas wandered off. He called Simon, Peter, and Robert together. He asked them to collect any sticks they found between 8 to 12 inches long. They left the following morning, the column now stretching way back into the distance. Douglas was concerned about how he was going to defend such a large column. He spoke to Samuel. They formed a mounted patrol of 8 men who would ride up and down and act as outriders. The rest of the men marched along with spear and shield. Douglas showed the boys how to make caltrops. Tie the sticks so, making a 6-sided spike. No matter which way it lands, there is always a spike pointing upwards. We will lay them out at night. It will surprise anyone who tries to sneak up on us. The boys grinned at this. They worked hard, and soon had several sacks full. Douglas went over to speak to the recently joined merchants. There were 4 of them. I will need to train your men to integrate them into our defense plans. We need our men to defend our goods. I'm not having them spread out all over the place, one of the merchants exclaimed. They will defend you goods. I just want them to have the best chance of defending the entire caravan. If we all work together and know how each other fights, then we can work together to form a coordinated defense. Otherwise, we could end up hurting each other by accident. Do our men get the same shields and spears as yours? Asked one man. Only if you can afford them. They are not cheap. Other than that, they will fight with what they have. The merchants grumbled at this. What if we refuse? Asked another. Then you will go to the rear of the caravan and take your chances. If you will not support and assist us, then, conversely, we will not support or assist you. You will be on your own. This brought shouts of outrage from them. They bickered and argued amongst themselves for some time, until they finally agreed. If they were upset, it was nothing to how their guard received the news. As usual, there was one braggart who thought he didn't need the training. I've been doing this for the last 10 years. I don't need some jumped-up pompous prick to tell me how to guard a caravan. Let me see your weapon, Douglas asked. Reluctantly, the man handed over his sword. Douglas examined the blade. It was a very average blade. It had a few nicks in it, so at some time it had struck something. Whether it was in battle or in practice was another matter. Have you actually used this in battle? Have you had to kill a man with it? The man looked embarrassed, but said, yes. Last year we held off a group who attacked our caravan. 5 of us held off 2 of the scumsuckers. They gave up in the end and ran away. We did our job, and none of our master's goods got stolen. Very good, but what about the rest of the caravan? Well, yes, some of the others got hit quite badly. One man had everything taken, including his wife and daughters. We were all right, though? All right. You let a fellow traveler lose his family and his livelihood, and you're all right? Where's your honor? Where's your pride? I'll tell you now that this will not happen in my caravan. No one will have to suffer that. I'd have moved heaven and earth to recover that man's family. Goods can be replaced, but families can't. I'll tell you now, you will train. You will train like you have never trained before. 5 of you to hold off 2? I'll tell you 2 of my men took out 5 opponents. They had swords, whereas my men only had staves. One of them is just a lad. Douglas yelled, as his veins stood out on his neck. They stepped back a step, not wanting to be too close to this terrifying vision in front of them. To say he was angry would have been an understatement. He had them spar with each other. He was dismayed with what he saw. None of you would last 2 seconds with any of my men. Why, even one of my boys could whip you. I'll put you with the new recruits, and we'll see how you get on. If you don't shape up, then you'll be paid off at the next town. This caused outrage. They protested, argued, and pleaded. Douglas just smiled. It was just what he wanted. He chose the biggest 2. Very well, if you 2 can beat my youngest man, then I'll reconsider. If he beats you, though, you will have to train and spar with him until you win. Is that acceptable? He called Simon over. The two men looked at each other and smiled. They were certain they could take this boy. Other men gathered to see the contest. Someone offered a wager, with odds favoring Simon. The new men could not resist. After all, what chance did that kid have against two experienced warriors? Tabitha watched in horror as the two men approached. She went to move towards them, but Isabel held her back. Just watch, Isabel told her. What weapons do you usually use? Douglas asked them. Swords, they replied. Douglas went and fetched 2 practice swords. The men swung the swords, feeling their weight. Simon slowly twirled his staff. A ring was formed, and the 2 men went to the sides. Simon stood in the middle, calming himself. He slowed his breathing, finding his center. His staff was making slow, lazy circles in the air. The merchants also came over to see what was going to happen. Douglas called out, "Begin." The 2 men nodded to each other and charged. Simon seemed to just stand there not moving. As the 2 men swung their swords at him, he just swayed slightly, the swords missing him by a hair's breadth. He swung his staff, catching first one, then the other around the back of the knees. They both crashed to the ground. He then spun and lightly tapped each man in the genitals. They both folded. He then placed the end of the staff to each of their throats. It was all over in seconds. The crowd were stunned. So, how many of you still think you don't need training? Step forward, and you can spar with either Simon or myself. Tabitha ran over to Simon and said, "Are you all right?" I was so worried. There's no need. I could tell straight away that they were no threat. They were too clumsy and slow. I could read where they were going to strike. I just dodged out of the way and hit them before they could recover. No one doubted the need for training after that. The weather over the next few days was kind to them, and they made good progress. It was outside a nondescript village that didn't even have a name that the next problem overtook them. They had just passed through the village and were topping a rise when they found a group of 20 armored horsemen waiting for them. The caravan halted. The guards ran to the front and formed a shield wall. Nathan moved to the head of the caravan. "Yes, gentlemen. How may we assist you?" The leader sat up straight in the saddle. "I am Captain Howard, of Lord Blackmore's personal bodyguard. I am here to escort the Lady Isabel back to her father." "Very well, I'll fetch her and her husband. They can then decide what is to happen." "Husband? What husband?" "I was given to understand that she was to marry Earl Tathlon." "I'll go and get them. I'll let them explain it themselves." Douglas and Isabel moved to the front of the caravan. "Good day, Captain Howard. What brings you so far from home?" Isabel said. The man's eyes came out on stalks. He hardly recognized Isabel, sitting there astride her horse, dressed in breeches, carrying a bow, and with a sword strapped to her side. Milady, we have been instructed to return you to your father. It seems that the Lord Tathlon is eager to meet you to discuss your forthcoming wedding. You are too late. I am already married. I'm married to Sir Douglas, here. I told my father that hell itself would freeze over before I married Lord Tathlon. He packed me off to the convent at Riverdale as a punishment. As you can see, we didn't make it that far. I have met and married a man with more honor, compassion, and integrity than all the lords, Baxters, and earls in the entire kingdom. I'm afraid you have had a wasted journey. I will not be returning with you." The man shifted uncomfortably in the saddle. "We were told to return you, willing or not. I'm afraid I'll have to insist you accompany us." "And if I refuse?" she asked, knocking an arrow to her bow. "I'm afraid, milady, I must insist. We have been ordered to bring you home, regardless. Bring you home we will. I'm sorry, Captain Howard, you will not. I will personally shoot the first man who tries to lay a hand on me. I'm sure my husband and our men will kill the rest. Return home now, while you are still able, and tell my father and mother that they lost me when they tried to have me marry Lord Tathlon, even after I refused. You may also tell my mother that I know of her and the Baxter's liaison. I'll let her be the one to break the news to Ebenezer, the greasy little man who I was really going to be sacrificed to. Let her know that her plot has been revealed. I will not be returning home, not now, and not in the foreseeable future." The captain looked puzzled. "I'm not quite sure what you mean, milady. All I know is that I have orders to return you." Douglas stepped forward. "Captain, I will ask you to think very carefully about your next statement. Your answer will decide whether your men live or die today. Look at the sky, think of your wife and children, and ponder what will happen to them if you do not return. Now I will ask the question. Are you prepared to take Lady Isabel by force, killing any who get in your way?" The man swallowed. It was then spotted Lieutenant Allen, Henry, and David. "You 3 men. You are instructed to bring Lady Isabel over here. You are in the employ of Lord Blackmore, and therefore under my command. Follow your orders. You always were a pompous fool, Howard. We are the personal bodyguard of her ladyship. She is the one who gives the orders, not you. Now, as Sir Douglas has already said, do you think this is a good day to die? Unless you ride away, now, men will die today. Let me assure you, it will not be us. The man was completely at a loss. He thought to just ride up, demand her release, and return home in triumph. He would never have thought in his wildest dreams that caravan guards would be prepared to fight against his lordship's personal bodyguard. He looked at those before him. There were men forming a shield wall, and behind them were more mounted men, many with bows. On the wagons were men, women, and boys, all again with bows. Even Lady Isabel was carrying a bow and looked like she intended to use it. He knew if he were to order a charge, he would lose many of his troops, and once the fighting started, there was a good chance that Lady Isabel could be injured, or worse. There was only one thing for it. He would challenge her husband, personally. Once he had defeated the man, she would be honor-bound to accompany him back to her father. Very well. I personally challenge your champion to a duel. When I win, you will then accompany me back to your father. What happens when you lose? Isabel asked him. That is very unlikely. I am your father's champion. I'm the best swordsman your father has. However, in that unlikely event, then I am willing to allow you all to continue on your journey. Now, bring forth your champion. They all laughed when Simon stepped forward with his staff. Douglas dismounted and walked over to him smiling. He ruffled his head. Not this time, young man. This one fancies himself a swordsman. I'll deal with him myself. Isabel came over and said, Thank you, young Sir Simon. But even if he really is quite good, Sir Douglas will soon put him in his place. He blushed profusely when she kissed him on the cheek. The rest of the men smiled and patted him on the back as he returned to his station. Tabitha came over to him. You are so brave, she told him, kissing him, then hugging him close. Douglas smiled when he saw this. He then turned towards his opponent, his face like stone. How do you wish to do this? First blood, unable to continue, or death, mounted, or on foot? I will fight you on foot. I will choose a knight's weapon, swords. We will fight, till first blood. Will that satisfy you? As long as you abide by what is agreed. If not, I will kill you, and every one of your men. You have threatened my wife. As far as I am concerned, your life is forfeit. The only reason I will let you live is that you are simply doing as you have been bidden. Cross me, and you die. Very well. I am Captain Howard, captain of Lord Blackmore's personal bodyguard. I am Sir Douglas, captain of Nathan's honorable caravan guards. I am also the husband of Lady Isabel Blackmore. Now, enough of this. Let's get it done. Both men saluted each other, then faced off. They circled each other, each watching the other, looking for any possible opening. Howard darted forward, thinking to find an opening. There was a clash of steel, then both men jumped back. They toyed with each other, each flicking their blades forward, testing each other. First one would attack, then the other. The attacks became more frequent. The sound of steel hitting steel rang out, rising to a crescendo. A smile broke out on Douglas's face. He was enjoying himself. Howard started to frown. This man was more skilled than he thought. He watched as Douglas started to smile. Damn it, the man was enjoying himself. The blades flashed faster and faster. Douglas's smile got wider and wider while Howard started to sweat. He could not believe just how quick this big man was. He was being forced back, further and further. He was being worn down by this giant of a man. He was tiring. It was becoming more and more difficult to block his blows. He was constantly on the defensive. He had no answer to this man. He thought he saw an opening and lunged forward. Douglas parried his blow, catching his sword with his dagger. Douglas's fist lashed out, smashing him in the nose and knocking him to the ground. Blood poured down his face. Douglas stepped back. I think that is first blood to me. Do you wish to continue? Howard staggered to his feet. He shook his head. No, no, you have beaten me fair and square. I will return to his lordship and inform him of your marriage and your decision. That is a sensible decision. You really didn't want to see your men killed, did you? Howard looked at him daggers. He said nothing, mounted his horse. Then he and his men departed. You enjoyed that, didn't you? Samuel asked him as they made their way back towards the caravan. Yes, I did. He was quite good, you know. Yes, but you were playing with him. I saw at least 20 points where you could have finished it. I know, but he had to be worn down. He had to know he was beaten. I could have finished it almost at once, but he would have thought it was a lucky blow. His honor would have made him push it further. Eventually, I would have had to kill him. He now knows he was beaten fairly. He admitted so himself. He knew he could not win against me, but at least he had a fight. He could be beaten and retain his honor. Isabel had by this time reached them. She heard what Douglas had told Samuel. That's my Douglas, always thinking of honor. It was very important. If he had thought that Douglas had won by luck, or even worse by subterfuge, then he would have ordered his men to attack and men would have died. Quite possibly some of us. As it is, he knows he was beaten fair and square. He can leave with his head held high and keep the respect of his men. There is no shame in being beaten by a better man, as long as you have done your best. Oh, So if you had beaten him quickly, it could have caused his men to attack? Yes, it could, Samuel told her. So how quickly could have you taken him? Within the first 30 seconds. He was slow getting his guard back up after his first attack. It would have been easy to slip under his guard and run him through. As it is, he can return and tell your parents that we are wed and to leave us alone. Isabel smiled and shook her head at him. I'm sorry, my love, but it will not be that easy. I can feel my mother's hand behind this. Once she gets an idea into her head, it will not be so easy to shake it. I'm afraid she will be like a dog with a bone. So we can expect more visits from the likes of him, can we? Next time I shan't be so accommodating. I'll just kill them. Let's see if they keep coming after us when all they receive back is corpses. She went to him and put her arms around him. Now. I'm sure they won't come back for a while. By then we will be far away. He kissed her and replied, if we're going to be far away, we had better get going then, hadn't we? They continued on their journey. After a further 3 days traveling, they crested a rise. There before them was the town of Balaam's home. It sat in a shallow valley with a river running alongside. The mountains made a spectacular backdrop. They could smell the place long before they reached it. It was a squalid, stinking place. A wall surrounding the town looked in poor repair. There seemed to be no order about the place. Groups of shifty-looking men were hanging around the town gates. They made their way towards the caravan quarter. As they did so, Nathan came over to Douglas. Something's wrong. This place never used to be like this. This is just chaos. I know. I came through, around 7 years ago. This was run by the Kilross clan. Theodore Kilross was their leader. He was a big man. Even I would not wish to cross him. I know. I must admit it's been at least 4 years since I've been here. I wonder what happened. I don't think going into town is going to be a good idea. We'll head upstream over by that copse there. At least then, we'll have the water before it reaches the town. They circumnavigated the town, coming to the river by the trees. Douglas ordered all the wagons to be positioned in a defensive semicircle with the river at their back. They were about 1.5 miles from the town. As they started to set up camp, they saw a group of 4 men making their way over. They continued to make camp as these men approached. Douglas and Nathan rode over to meet them. Hello, can we help you? Nathan asked the men. You can't camp here. You have to go over to the compound. Sorry, but who are you? We're members of the ruling council. We run the place. What we say goes. You need to go to the compound and pay the toll. Everyone has to pay. What do we get for the toll? Get. What do you mean get? You get to live. That's what you get. We're living now? Do I have to take it that you are threatening us? Listen, we control this town. This is the only place you can get supplies before Balaam's Gap. Now you wouldn't want to get stuck there, would you? Not with all those bandits and all. So let me get this straight. You want us to go over to the compound so you can rob us, and when you've done that, you can tell your friends in the mountains that we have goods worth stealing, so they can attack us there? Do we look that stupid? Douglas asked him. Now you listen, and you listen good. We have over 150 men here. If you don't do as we say, then we'll come out and make you. If we do that, well, you have women here, don't you? I can think of a few things that could happen to them. You wouldn't want that, would you? He never completed his sentence as there was a knife lodged in his throat. He slowly slid from his horse. His companions looked stunned. Nobody threatens my wife and lives. Now take him back and tell your friends over there that if they want to fight, then fine. Come and get it. One of the men went for his sword. He too slumped forward with a dagger in his chest. Douglas drew his sword. Anyone else? He looked at the 2 remaining men. They just stood there wide-eyed. No, didn't think so. If you want our goods, come and get them. We'll be waiting. You're all dead men. One of them screamed at them. Douglas moved his hand. The man flinched. Leave, now, while you still can, he growled. The men fled, leaving their fallen companions where they lay. Douglas retrieved his knives, wiping them on the dead men's clothes. They returned to the encampment. Do you think that was wise? Yes. We have shown them that we mean business, and that we are not afraid of them. There's one other thing. For an attacker to take a well-defended position, he needs to outnumber the enemy by 3 to 1. If he has 150, then he doesn't. They probably don't know that. They are about to get a nasty shock. The other thing is, they have to be holding the town by force. If they bring all their men out to fight, then who is going to hold the town? They have to leave at least 1/3 of their force behind. Now then, let's organize our defense. Isabel came running over to him. What happened? Why did you kill those men? They threatened you, and all the other women here. No one does that and lives. They know that now. They wanted us to go to their compound, where we would have to pay some sort of toll. They are bandits. They somehow have taken control of the town. We must now prepare for their attack. He called for everyone's attention. You all saw what happened out there. They threatened to use our women for their entertainment. I showed them that if they want that, it will come at a very high price. They are now forced to attack us. We haven't got long to prepare, an hour at most. I need everyone with a shovel to dig a hole about 1 foot square and 1 foot deep. The idea is that if they come at us on horseback, Then the horse will trip and pitch his rider head first into the ground. I need all of you to help. I want you to leave a gap 10 feet wide from the front of my wagon here. This will give us a path out. Don't worry, they won't be able to see it when they attack. Those of you without a shovel, go into the woods and cut some briar or hawthorn bushes. Bring them back here to make a barricade. Those of you with bows, get them and find a position on the wagons. As soon as we see them, get to your positions. They all started to scurry about. Each of them grabbed a shovel and started digging. He turned to Simon. Have you got those caltrops? Yes, I'll go and get them. We've got 6 sacks of them now. Douglas smiled. That will give them a surprise. They won't be expecting that. Simon got the sacks. He and the other children rushed about spreading these out in the long grass in front of and around the holes that were being dug. Others went off to collect the bushes. He turned to Samuel. I need you to serve as reserve. Get some of your best men. If they break through, it'll be up to you to stop them. Just like the old days. He smiled. You've learned well. This is just how I taught you. Douglas looked at his old mentor and smiled. Sorry, it was you who taught me how to do all this. You know what to do? I'll leave you to it. He went over to some of the merchants and farmers. Get whatever weapons you can, be they pitchforks, hammers, knives, anything. If they get through them, mob them. Hit them with whatever you can. You'll be surprised how much damage a hammer can do. He went from place to place, helping here, advising there. He saw Simon gathering arrows from the stores, ensuring each archer had a good supply. Douglas went out and placed markers at 50, 100, and 150 paces. These would serve as markers for his archers. A shout went out when they saw the gates open. Everyone stopped what they were doing and ran back to their positions. They watched as the enemy lined up. Around 50 were on horseback, others were on foot. There was no discipline in the opposing troops. They were a mob, and they charged as such. Douglas had placed his shield bearers in the gaps between the wagons. He himself was standing on top of one of the wagons, with his bow and his bronze shield propped up before him. He had his warhorse prepared and tied just behind his wagon. He smiled as he watched them charge, piecemeal, towards the wagons. It was a mile and a half. They would be exhausted by the time they arrived. He glanced at the archer to his left. It was one of the merchant's wives. Not very smart, are they? She said. No, they're not. Do you think we'll win? After seeing this, I can't see how we'll lose. They'll run the fight out of themselves before they even get here. Douglas looked to the rest of the archers. He raised his bow. Now, he called. A flight of arrows flew towards the enemy. The lead riders fell. Arrow after arrow flew. All of Douglas's arrows found their mark. The horses arrived at caltrops. The horses, once they landed on the caltrops, would either stumble or jump to the side, crashing into the rider next to him. Next they arrived where the holes were dug. Horses stumbled and tripped, throwing their riders. He would then receive an arrow or two for his trouble. Out of the 50 that started the attack, only 15 made it to the wagons. They tried to charge the shield bearers, but the horses would not get too close to the spears. They tried to climb onto the wagons. Douglas and the others took advantage of the confusion to shoot most of these men from their horses. He watched with a mixture of pride and concern as Isabel and the others fired arrow after arrow into their assailants. Only 2 got inside the wagon's barrier. Douglas watched in horror as one of the men climbed onto Isabel's wagon. She dropped her bow and drew her sword. The man charged her and swung his blade at her. She parried his blow, then stabbed him with her dagger. He staggered back. Then Isabel ran him through with her sword. He collapsed in a heap at her feet. She then sheathed her sword and retrieved her bow from where she had dropped it. One of the horsemen charged the wagons. His horse jumped the wagon. One of the women stabbed at it with a pitchfork. She speared its belly. The horse collapsed, throwing its rider. He was mobbed by several men, women, and children, armed with knives, hammers, scythes, and sticks. He did not rise. The first of the foot soldiers had finally arrived. They too discovered the caltrops the hard way. Their screams rang out as they impaled their feet on them. Several of them tripped in the potholes that had been dug. Finally, although greatly reduced in number, they arrived. They smashed into a group of 6 men defending one of the gaps. These men resisted valiantly, but by sheer weight of numbers they were being forced back. Samuel and 5 others were acting as a reserve. They charged towards breach. Douglas, seeing what was happening, leapt from the wagon and charged. Samuel and his men were holding the breach, but only just. Douglas charged in. He struck one man, almost removing his head. Then he parried another, trapping the man's sword with his dagger. He ran the man through. He felt a blow to his back, the sword sliding across his chainmail. He turned, parried another blow, then gutted his man. It was blow after blow, parry, thrust, stab, cut. Suddenly, he turned around to find there were no more opponents. They had either fled or died. He rushed to his horse and charged out. His blood was up, and he wasn't thinking. He charged after the fleeing men, cutting each of them down. Not one made it back to the town. He turned the horse and rode back. Isabel ran over to him. Just what do you think you were playing at charging off like that? She berated him. You could have been hurt or killed. He climbed down from his horse, carefully tying it back to the wagon, then moving far enough away so it couldn't lash out at anyone. He looked down at this firebrand staring up at him, her eyes filled with fire and emotion. He gathered her up in his arms and kissed her. I had to stop them returning. They were trying to hurt you. I have told you, no one threatens you and lives. What of you? That man climbs onto your wagon, and you take him on. Well, there were women and children there. I couldn't let them be put at risk, now could I? Anyway, he wasn't very good. I dealt with him easily. Samuel stood there and laughed. You two, the warrior king and queen, arguing over who killed what and why. You both were fantastic. You, Douglas, saved the day when you attacked the breakthrough. We were struggling to contain them. You, milady, were magnificent. You stood your ground and defeated your opponent. As to charging off and dealing with the survivors, well, that just means there are fewer to return and attack us again. I would say that now would be a good time to attack the town and see what the hell is going on over there. That's all very well, but first we must see to our wounded. I want to see them taken care of before we do anything else. Ask your wife what she needs. I know she'll be busy, ordered Douglas. You're right. I'll get onto it right away. The wounded were collected. Douglas, Isabel, and Simon made their way to where they were being treated. Laura was leaning over a bed, bandaging one of the wounded. Bishop Radcliffe and Carlos were there as well. So what was the butcher's bill this time? We were very lucky. We only lost 5, with another 10 wounded, Laura told him. That's good. They lost what? 100? 150? We haven't brought all of them in yet. We have 47 wounded so far. Some may not make it. The bishop spoke up. 47 for the loss of 15. That's impressive, stated Isabel. That's 47 wounded that we have recovered so far. We haven't even started to recover the dead yet. The total will be nearer to 100. Their bodies still litter the battlefield. We need to clear that. We still have the caltrops out there. I wouldn't want anyone else getting hurt. I'll get some of the youngsters on it. Douglas sent orders to Simon and the others to start clearing the battlefield of booby traps. Soon, around a dozen youngsters were on their hands and knees, going over areas of the battlefield that had already cleared of bodies, picking up the caltrops. The men were clearing the rest of the bodies. As they worked, they noticed people leaving the town. They saw about 20 horsemen ride out and disappear towards the mountains. Shortly afterwards, a crowd of women and children came out of the town gates and started to make their way towards where the caravan was encamped. The men stopped what they were doing, grabbed their weapons, and moved forward. Douglas and Isabel were sent for. The women stopped when they reached the guards. What do you want here? Douglas inquired. Sir, our husbands. What news of them? A tearful woman pleaded. If you mean the men that attacked us, most of them are dead. If they are not dead, then they are wounded. What will happen to them? I have yet to decide. They attacked us without provocation. We did not seek confrontation. That is why we camped here. Wails of anguish arose from the women and children. They saw a cart loaded with the last of the bodies, and they went to rush towards it. Stay there, Douglas commanded. There are still dangers here. We have not yet made the ground safe. We will take you, 10 at a time, into our camp. If you find your men amongst the dead, you can take his body for burial. If he is amongst the wounded, then you can say your goodbyes to him. Isabel looked at him. She pulled him away, out of earshot of the women. What do you mean, goodbyes? Do you mean to tell me you intend to kill all the prisoners? Of course. What else would you have me do with them? We cannot release them. We cannot guard them. What else are we going to do with them? I don't know. There must be something. We can't just kill them. When you have thought of something, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. Slavery would be one option, but to have slaves, you need somewhere to keep them. You also need something for them to do. If we had farms, then fine, but we haven't. If we had mines, but again, we haven't. I'll leave the decision until morning, but if nothing comes up by then, I'm afraid they're all for the chop. The women went to their men. There was much weeping and wailing when loved ones were found amongst the dead. There were some exceptions. They saw one woman pull a knife and repeatedly stab one of the bodies. You won't hurt me again, you traitor, she screamed. That's for my mother. That's for my sister. That's for my father. Then, she collapsed to the ground, weeping. One of the people from the camp approached her. Placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, they comforted the grieving girl. She turned to them, buried her face in their embrace, and sobbed. Gradually, she began to calm down, and they gently led her away. Douglas walked over to one of the camp members and asked who they were and why they had attacked the caravan. We are the free wanderers. We are beholding to no lord or king. We have no lands of our own, so we took to the mountains. We have lived in the pass for many years. We charged the passing caravans a toll, If they don't pay, then we take what we want from them. About 2 years ago, our leader, Guthrum, persuaded us to come down and take this town. He told us that we would have our own land. We could rule our own lands. Everything was going well until you turned up. I told him that you looked different. You were much sharper and more professional than anyone else we've seen. He said he would take a tribute from you, the same as everyone else. Tell me, what did he do to make you attack them? He threatened our women. He threatened to assault our women. I will kill anyone who threatens my wife. He threatened my wife. He died. After the attack, his brother took his family and rode back into the mountains. So who's in charge there now? As far as I know, no one. It's chaos over there. Everyone is terrified of what is going to happen next. Douglas sighed and shook his head. He'd seen towns where the leaders had run. There would be chaos. Men would be killed and robbed. The women would be assaulted, then either killed or sold into slavery. Some building would catch fire, and soon the whole town would go up in smoke. If that happened, what would the caravans do? This was the only stop on the way through Balaam's Gap, and that was the only route through the mountains. He went to find Nathan. We have a problem. It seems the people in charge of Balaam's home have fled. We all know what happens next. Old scores are settled, people die, and the place goes up in smoke. Is there another route through the mountains, or is this it? If so, do you want me to save this town? I can do it, but I might have to leave the caravan for a while unless you wish to wait for a few weeks until we establish some sort of order here. If we lose Balaam's home, then we lose the only route through the mountains for over 100 miles. We mustn't lose this place. Okay, how long do you think it will take to sort out? He asked, exasperated. 3, possibly 4 weeks. Could be longer. Depends on if we find someone who we can trust to run the place. There's another problem. What about the prisoners and their women? Isabel asked them. What about them? They knew the risks when they attacked us. This is why I have never married or had children. They are on their own. That's awful. You cannot just abandon these people. So what are we to do with them? We cannot feed them. We don't have enough supplies. If they are able, if they have a trade, then they can find work. Other than that, the women will have to do what women have had to do since time began and 3-0 for themselves. Maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe they won't. Now, if you have some other solution, please share it with us. The wounded men will either be enslaved or killed. Again, I don't like the idea, but since no one else has any idea what to do with them, their fate is sealed. Let's see what the situation is when we go into the town. Perhaps something will come up, but as things are at the moment, I can see me slitting their throats before long. Isabel looked at him in horror. That he could talk of killing these men so casually. The real horror of it was she knew he would and could do it. He wouldn't like it, but he would come up behind each and every one of the prisoners and slit their throats. He'd even do it while their wives and children looked on. She racked her brains for an alternative, but to her consternation, she could not find one. The men were formed up, and they marched towards Balaam's home. They kept good formation and made an impressive sight as they entered through the main gate. The townsfolk were nervous and anxious. That much was obvious from their faces. They were met by a delegation of local worthies. One of the men, an older man with straggly, graying hair, stepped forward. Douglas called the column to a halt. My name is Dimitris. I welcome you to Balaam's home. I am Sir Douglas. This is my wife, Lady Isabel. Tell me, who now controls this town? The man took a deep breath, swallowed nervously, then said, You do, Sir Douglas. You defeated the previous incumbent, Guthrum. The town and the lives of the people within are now in your hands. Douglas sighed. This is what he expected, but it was the last thing he wanted. Very well, Dimitris. I will need all the remaining town guard to report to me. In the meantime, I would like to see the Lord's residence. Ah, there are no town guards. You killed or captured them. As for the residence, it's the large building on the hill in the center of town. Very well, have the guild councils report as soon as practical. We are all that is left of the council. Guthrum was, how can I say, demanding? He killed or drove off all the others. Very well, show me the residence. Then we can plan what we will do next. As they made their way to the residence, Douglas looked around at the town. It was a good-sized town, but was very run down. Most of the houses looked rather shabby and neglected. They made their way through what Douglas presumed was the merchant's quarter. It should have been buzzing and teeming with life, but it was empty and desolate. The people they passed looked haggard and drawn. The children seemed thin, hungry, and ragged. They arrived at the residence. It was a large fortress-type place surrounded by a high wall, with a gatehouse protected by a portcullis. The portcullis was raised and they entered. The main house, a 3-story structure, was in much the same condition as everything else. It looked tired and neglected. The place was a wreck. There was furniture strewn all over, clothing, books and manuscripts were lying all around. Every room had been ransacked. Anything of value had been taken. What happened to the former rulers? The people before Guthrum? Ah, They sort of disappeared. What do you mean? Disappeared? There was a caravan that came through about 3 months after Guthrum's people took over. After the caravan left, no one saw sight nor sound of them again. Slavers. Douglas spat. Douglas looked around in dismay. He was totally out of his depth. Isabel looked up at him. She squeezed his hand. It's all right. We'll get this sorted out. Just remember, you have lots of people who can help. She turned to Dimitris. Tell me, what do you do here? I was steward to Sir Theodore Kilross. I remained in that position when Guthrum took over. Excellent. You'll know who is trustworthy and diligent, and who to avoid. Tell us, what happened here? The man's composure collapsed. He slumped into one of the chairs. It's been awful. A living nightmare. It happened 2 years ago. We were constantly raided by the bandits, but we always fought them off. We thought them a nuisance, but no more. Then there appeared a caravan, just like any other caravan. Wagons and horses, people walking, some riding. We allowed them into the town and directed them towards the caravan quarter. Once inside the gates, they attacked. They took out all of the town guard, killed every last one of them. They soon captured the town. They then claimed the men's wives and daughters as spoils of war. We could hear them screaming for days. Not all of them made it. They ruined this place. Those that could got out. The rest of us were stuck here. They would charge each caravan a toll to allow them to stop here. They would help themselves to whatever took their fancy, goods, women, horses. Word was spreading. We knew that soon there would be no more caravans. They were destroying the place. Well, all that is now over. What I need you to do is compile me a list of the foodstuffs. I saw a lot of hungry children while we were coming here. They need to be fed. They also look like a lot of them need new clothes as well. See what stocks of linen, cotton, and wool we have. Also send for the cordwainers and cobblers. There are a lot of folk who need new shoes. Isabel instructed him. She turned to Douglas and said, send for Samuel. He knows how to organize a town guard. He can provide security for our town. I'll organize the women and get this place cleaned up. We'll need to organize a field kitchen. There are a lot of frightened, hungry people out there. If we provide a meal for everyone, it'll go a long way to assuage their fears. I'll get Miriam on it, straight away. I'll leave you to bring Nathan and the rest of the caravan into the town. Have a look at the defenses as well. See what needs improving. We have the prisoners as a labor force. We can also use the women and children. At least that way you won't have to kill them, will you? He turned to his wife, this wonderful woman who had just taken charge and lifted this intolerable burden from his shoulders. He gathered her up in his arms and kissed her. Thank you. I felt I was drowning in all this. I'll get Samuel to organize a guard and have a look round to see what needs doing. Dimitris was looking at her as if she were an angel sent from heaven. He was smiling and looked 10 years younger as he rose from his chair. He felt suddenly invigorated and slightly lightheaded. I'll set to work at once, milady. I'll get those figures as soon as I can. The place was suddenly transformed into a hive of activity as women descended on the place and cleaned it from top to bottom. Food was found and prepared, tables and chairs set up in the town square. Musicians appeared, ale was brought forth, and soon a giant party was in full swing. Douglas had asked Samuel to organize a town guard, to which the man laughed and told him he had already done it. Douglas smiled and thanked his old friend. The caravan was brought in and secured. Nathan looked around. He could already see and feel the difference that Douglas and Isabel had made. There was another caravan already there. The guards were looking around nervously. Nathan went over, introduced himself, and asked to see the caravan master. The man came forward. There was a shout of recognition. Nathan, you old reprobate. What are you doing here? Jeremiah, who are you calling a reprobate, you old scoundrel? Tell me, how are things? Not good. There's plague in Whitefield. We came through about 3 weeks ago. It was awful. Bodies everywhere. We need to tell Sir Douglas at once. He needs to know. Is he the one who dealt with these bandits? Yes, he is. He was my caravan's guard captain. With what has happened, I think I might be looking for a new one. I'll never find his like again, I fear. It sounds like there is a tale to be told there. Oh, there is. Believe me, there is. We saw some soldiers marching in. Very impressive they looked, too. They're my caravan guards. Yours. You look like you could take on the world with that lot. As I say, I'll not see his like again. He trained up that rabble I had. Turned them into proper soldiers. Gods, I wonder if he'd be interested in training my men like that? It couldn't hurt to ask. I think we might be stuck here a while as there's war in the north and plague in the south. Stopping right here for a while might just be the best thing we could do. War in the north? What's all that about? It would take far too long to explain. Listen, there's a party going right now. I intend to join in. Care to come? Yes, why not? Jeremiah quickly spoke to his guard captain. The man nodded his understanding. The two men then went to join the party. Bishop Radcliffe and Carlos made their way to the church. It, like the rest of the town, was in a terrible state. It appeared as if they had used the church as a prison. There was rubbish strewn all around, and it was obvious that people had defecated behind the altar. All the fine vestments and tapestries were missing or torn. The lectern had been defaced, being covered in obscenities, which were daubed on in red paint. Sitting in the middle of this chaos was the priest. He was a broken man. He was quietly weeping, staring vacantly at the disaster all around him. The bishop and Carlos went over to him. "It's all right now. It's over. They've gone. Most of them are dead. We can get this place cleaned up and start the services again. You don't understand. The things they made me do. I was scared. I didn't want to die. I'm Bishop Radcliffe. This is my companion Carlos. Tell me, what is your name?" "I am Father Jonas." "Father Jonas, would you like me to hear your confession?" "Yes. Yes, I would." "Good. Let's go to the confessional, then, shall we?" The two men made their way over to the confessional. Bishop Radcliffe took his confession. Father Jonas told the bishop of how the bandits had abused both himself and the members of his congregation. He spoke of how one of the bandits had assaulted him, and of how they had forced him to have sex with one of the women, while they laughed and cheered. He related how they had emptied the church of all the valuables, the silver candlesticks, and the silver offering plate. They ridiculed him because the church was so poor. Bishop Radcliffe conferred on him the blessing of absolution. "Come, let us return to the residency. I'll introduce you to Sir Douglas and Lady Isabel." They returned towards the residency. As they passed the town square, they saw the party in full swing. "Come, Father, come and celebrate. The bandits are gone. We are free," one of the party-goers called out. The man smiled wanly. Wave then went to sit with his parishioners. The bishop and Carlos introduced themselves and were invited to join the table. Douglas and Isabel went from table to table, introducing themselves and graciously accepting the heartfelt thanks of the townsfolk. Speeches were called for. Dimitri's called for silence. The crowd fell silent. "Friends, today we celebrate our freedom. We have a new lord and lady. I give you the valiant warriors who freed us from tyranny, Sir Douglas and Lady Isabel, Lord and Lady of Balham's home." The crowd erupted. There were cheers, whistles, stamping of feet, and people calling out for a speech. Douglas and Isabel stood. Douglas could not remember when he felt as nervous. He would rather have faced 100 enemies alone than faced this crowd. He was, to put it plainly, terrified. Isabel felt his fear and squeezed his hand. He looked down at her as she smiled at him. He felt his heart stop. The nerves just seemed to melt away. He took a deep breath. "My friends, thank you for your welcome. I don't know what to say. I am a simple warrior who was tasked with defending a caravan. Now I find myself a lord. As I carried out my task of training the caravan guards, I will dedicate myself to protecting you. Thank you." Douglas sat down, while Isabel remained standing. Isabel smiled, then she spoke. "My dear friends, what my husband was trying to say is that we are delighted with your warm welcome. As you know, we did not ask for this honor. Rather, it was thrust upon us. God has chosen to grant us the stewardship of this town. I promise you this, for as long as we are here, we will ensure to the best of our ability that no one goes hungry. We intend to return this place to its former glory and prosperity. It will take a lot of hard work on all our parts. Some of you may not like some of the decisions we make, but rest assured that they will be made in the best interests of the whole town. Tomorrow we will begin, but, for now, enjoy the party." The cheers rang out across the town. A good time was had by all. The party went on until the early hours of the following morning. Douglas and Isabel had retired much earlier. Later, as they lay in bed, Douglas turned to Isabel. "Are you okay?" "Sure, why? Aren't you?" Isabel asked. "To tell you the truth, I'm absolutely terrified. I haven't got a clue what to do now. I'd rather face an army single-handed. The most I've ever been responsible for is my squad. Now the lives of every single man, woman, and child depends on our decisions. Doesn't that scare you?" "A little, but then I have this wonderful warrior who somehow always knows what to do. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Listen, we cannot do any worse than some of the idiots who call themselves lords. My God, some of them can barely dress themselves. Remember, you are not alone in this. We have some good people around us. You'll have to learn to delegate. Give someone a task and let them get on with it. For now, let's get some sleep. Everything will sort itself out in the morning." "Sleep? Are you sure?" She giggled. They did get to sleep, eventually. The following morning, there were some thick heads. The party had gone on well into the early morning. Douglas and Isabel rose, and Brianna helped her dress. They went down for breakfast. It was here they were brought up to date with the state of the town. Bishop Radcliffe explained about the state of the church, and Father Jonas. "Get some people, and get it cleaned up. I would like to have a service of Thanksgiving as soon as possible. Ask around if folk have things they'd like to donate, even if it's only on loan." Bishop Radcliffe nodded. Nathan was next. He told them of Jeremiah and his reports of plague in Whitefield. That's disturbing. People will flee. They will bring the plague with them. That's how it spreads. We will need to set up a quarantine area downstream of the town. This was agreed. After they had finished breakfast, they set up a room as a study. Dimitri's reported on the state of the town. Well, sir, apart from the sore heads this morning, most of the populace seem overjoyed with the situation they find themselves in. Most of the storehouses are fairly full. We seem to have sufficient stocks to see us through to harvest. There are several places where we were not allowed to go. Guthrum forbade it. One of them is the basement, here in this building. Very well. Let's go and have a look and see what we have down there, shall we? Douglas went and fetched an axe. Dimitri's looked at him. Excuse me, sire, but why the axe? The door might be locked. Do you have the key? Well, no, sire, I don't. Douglas smiled and waved the axe. I do. They made their way down to the cellars. The door was, of course, locked. They searched through some keys they had found on Guthrum's body. None of them fit. A few swift blows of Douglas's axe soon removed the problem. They stepped inside to discover a veritable treasure trove. The room was stacked from floor to ceiling with valuables. There was boxes filled with coins, bolts of fine silks and cottons. There was jewelry stacked from floor to ceiling. Well, it looks like the town treasury won't have a problem for the foreseeable future. Dimitri's looked at him. Sire, this treasure is yours. Are you not going to claim it? Why should I? I have enough to last me for many years. Why would I want more? Tell me, what am I going to do with it? Lock it in a room and come down once in a while to look at it? Dimitri's laughed and said, I never thought of it in that way. You are right, of course. Once a man has enough to live on, why hoard more? He cannot spend it. All he can do is lie in bed worrying about someone trying to steal it. Douglas went over to a box of coins. He pulled out a bag and filled it. He gave it to Dimitri's. Go and pay for the clothes and shoes my wife wishes to order for the children. Make sure each one has a good pair of boots, a good shirt and trousers, or a dress for the girls, and a good coat. Also ask about any craftsman that had his tools stolen or damaged. Make sure he has enough to replace them. I have plans for this place. We'll need all the skilled craftsmen we can lay our hands on. As they were about to leave, Douglas spotted a pair of multi-socket silver candlesticks. He went over to retrieve them. I think I know someone who'll be glad to see these. They're from the church. Father Jonas was beside himself when they were stolen. I've never seen him more upset. Well, I think I know just the person to return them. Come on, there's someone I want you to meet. By the way, don't mention what we've found, will you? They went off to find Bishop Radcliffe. They found him over at the church. He, along with several others, were busy cleaning. Bishop, I have found something that you might be able to use, Douglas said as he held up the candlesticks. Father Jonas saw them and exclaimed, the candlesticks. How? Where? It's a miracle. We found them at the residence. These and a few other things were left behind in their rush to leave. Father Jonas fell to his knees giving thanks and praising God for the miraculous return of the candlesticks. Douglas pulled the bishop to one side and asked, is he all right? Yes, he's had a very traumatic experience. Finding these, I think, will be the first step on his recovery. Good. Now there's someone here I'd like you to meet. Bishop Radcliffe, this is Dimitri's, my steward, Douglas said. Pleased to meet you, my good man. The bishop told him, shaking him by his hand. Likewise, Bishop. I'm very pleased to meet you. Very pleased indeed. I think we'll be working together a lot. We wish to hold a service of celebration to mark the defeat of Guthrum. As you can see, much of the church's decoration has been taken. If you could find some tapestries or paintings that would be suitable, then we would be eternally grateful. Dimitri's racked his brain. He knew of a weaver in town. Perhaps he had something. He certainly had enough money at his disposal. There was also Gerard, the painter. He'd ask him if he could paint something. He knew that Gerard could certainly use the money. I'll go and have a word with a few people and see what I can do. No promises now, but I'll certainly try my best. We cannot ask more than that. Thank you, my son, the bishop said, and held out his hand. Dimitri's kissed his ring. Douglas nodded to the bishop, who smiled back. He and Dimitri's continued with the tour of the town. They visited the weaver. They told him of the bishop's request. My lord, I do not have anything at present. It would take me at least 3 months to have something like that ready. I see. Could you have it ready for harvest? Douglas inquired. Possibly, but it would mean putting all my other work on hold. If you took on some helpers to do the less difficult or complicated work, would that help? Yes, but where am I going to get these workers? The women of the bandits. They are going to need work. If they don't work, then they will starve. If they don't have food, then they will steal. If they steal, then I will kill them. Do you wish to see women hanging in the square just because they and their children were hungry? The man looked horrified. No, I would not. That would make you no better than the people you replaced. No, they would be criminals. They would be thieves. The fact that hunger drove them to it is of no relevance to the victims. If they had work, well then there is no need. So, I ask again, would you be willing to employ some of these women and children? Well, if you put it like that, of course I will. Send them along. I could use 3. Good. Now then, I don't expect you to pay their wages at first. I will pay the first month. Tell me how much. The man's jaw dropped. He was going to get the biggest commission of his life. Also, he was getting helpers, and their wages would be paid for the first month. He liked this new ruler. He thought quickly, 2 shilling a week, 3 workers for week. He added it up quickly in his head. Thank you, sire. That is most generous indeed. The wages will be 24 shillings. It will be 2 silver crowns for the tapestry. Douglas nodded at Dimitri's. He retrieved the money from his pouch. He handed it over to the astonished man. If you need any more, or if it takes longer to do the work, or you need more workers, just let me know. Remember, if you are fair with me, then I'll be fair with you. What you have charged for the tapestry is very reasonable. So are the wages for your workers. I like that. I'll send some women to you. Choose those you need. Let me know if there are any problems, Dimitri's told him. I will. You can count on me, sirs. Yes, indeed. The man told them, shaking their hands for all he was worth. Next they visited the painter, Gerard. They told him what they were after. He looked at them thoughtfully. I may just have something. Please wait here. He disappeared into his studio. He returned a few minutes later with a magnificent painting of the Last Supper. Will this do? It's magnificent. It will look resplendent up behind the altar, exclaimed Dimitri's. Yes, it's wonderful. The bishop will be pleased. I'll let them know. We can dedicate it during the celebration service they are planning, Douglas explained. How much are you asking for it? I cannot accept less than 2 gold crowns for it, Gerard told them. That is a lot of money. I can see how much time and effort you have put into it. We'll take it. Dimitri's, pay the man. Gerard stood dumbfounded as Dimitri's pulled 2 gold crowns from his pouch. Never had he seen so much money. He could now settle his debts and he and his family could enjoy life again. They returned to what he now found himself considering his home for lunch. He found Isabel there. He asked her how her morning had gone. She told him how she had, along with Lieutenant Allen, David and Henry, been touring the town. She had been speaking to the women of the town and had found that now that the ever-pervading threat of molestation and assault had been lifted, spirits were much higher. Their main priority now was feeding their families, especially the families of those killed. Douglas told her of the weaver and how he had paid him to take on 3 women. She turned to him and smiled. I knew you would come up with something. The thing is, those bandits stole everything they could lay their hands on. But for the most part, it's still here. Once they had stolen it, there was nothing they could do with it. We've even found the candlesticks that were stolen from the church. There's a whole room in the cellars that is full of treasure. We'll use it to fund the rebuilding of this place. The thing that concerns me is the reports of plague in Whitefield. There is war in the north and plague in the south. We are caught in the middle. We will need to prepare. We will need to build granaries, build up the stores and grow as many crops as possible. We need to build up our defenses. Who knows what or who we might have to deal with. What are you talking about? Isabel asked him. If you have war, there are always displaced people. They are desperate, frightened, and hungry. It's the same when you have plague. People are terrified, and then they flee. They bring the disease with them. An area needs to be set aside for them. They need to be kept there until we know they are disease-free, so they don't spread it to everyone else in the town. It needs to be downstream from the town, so as not to spread their taint to the water that supplies the town. I suppose you have already thought of where you are going to get the labor you need for these projects, haven't you? Oh, that's easy. We have the prisoners and their families. The prisoners will be given a simple choice, work or die. If they do not work, I will simply remove their heads. Their families will be given a similar choice, work or starve. If the women have work, they can feed their families and won't have to 3-0 for themselves. I'm sure they will be glad of the choice. When the refugees arrive, they will be given the same choice, work or move on. I have few doubts which they will choose. I'm sure they will. Well, you seem to have taken care of most of our problems. What do you intend to do this afternoon? She teased him. He smiled at her. This afternoon we are going to have a tour of this town. I want to get a real feel for the place. So far I feel I have only just scratched the surface. There is a lot more that needs doing. I'll get everyone together and we'll get going then. It was quite a crowd that accompanied them that afternoon. They included Gordon and Henrietta as well as Nathan, Paul, and Peter. Samuel also accompanied them along with Dimitri's. They first went through what was left of the merchants' quarter. There were still merchants there despite the deprivations of Guthrum and his men. They reassured them that they would be left in peace to trade and that taxes would be reasonable. He also promised to keep accounts of how the taxes were spent, and every year the accounts would be made available to any who wished to see them. The merchants were amazed at this. Usually the taxes were paid in order for the rulers to live a life of luxury. To actually see where the money was being spent was unheard of. Next they went to inspect the defenses. They consisted of a wooden palisade that ran around 3 sides of the town. The fourth was defended by the river, which was not only wide and deep, but also had steep banks. Douglas inspected the palisades. They were broken down and badly in need of repair and/or replacement. We'll need to replace most of these. However, what I would like to do is to have a trench dug around the town to provide a moat. We could have drawbridges with gatehouses to start with, and then build a new wall behind it. This would give us a cleared killing field between the 2 walls. We would be able to have drawbridges connecting the 2 walls, enabling us to effectively trap any attacker who managed to scale the first wall. That's a good plan, but we don't have the workforce for something like that, Dimitri's informed him. No, not yet we don't. Remember, there is war to the north. Harvest is only 1 month away. If people cannot harvest their crops, or have their crops stolen, then they will have to flee to where they think there might be food. If they don't, then they and their families will starve. We will need to gather all and every scrap we can. If the reports of plague to the south are true, then we can expect the first refugees within the week. We need to prepare. They next went to where the town met the river. Paul looked out over to the opposite bank. Who owns the land over there? No one as far as I know. It's known as the Wilds. The river is difficult to cross. There are no fords for at least 50 miles. We are fortunate that the road to Balaam's Gap runs alongside the river. We do not actually need to cross it, Dimitri's informed him. That looks like really good farmland over there. If a bridge were built and controlled from within the town, we could farm that land free from bandits or enemy soldiers. Why, I wonder, has no one done this before? As far as I recall, the old king's grandfather declared it a royal hunting reserve. They banned anyone from entering on pain of death. I guess because it wasn't really needed, we just ignored it. He cleared every town and village for a week's ride in every direction. It has turned into a wilderness out there. Well, we'll ignore it no longer. Have we someone who could build a bridge here? If we could farm this land, or at least for now hunt the extensive game that must be out there, then we will be able to go a long way to providing for the exodus I'm expecting, Douglas asked. Not that I'm aware. I'm sure someone could be found, but at the moment no one comes to mind. Why do we need a bridge? If someone built a jetty on either side, then strung a rope across the river and built a raft, we could have a ferry to get across. Yes, a bridge would be better, but until we find someone who could build it, a ferry would serve just as well, said Peter. They all looked at the lad. Well done, young man. I think you have the solution there. It would also give us greater security as well. If anyone attacked us from that side, we could just pull the ferry to our side, exclaimed Douglas. We need to get over there and gather fodder. The grass is long and lush. We could cut it now and store it for the winter. If food is likely to be tight, then it doesn't make sense to feed animals with food that could feed us, Paul declared. They continued all afternoon going from place to place, Douglas making notes of what was needed here, listening to what was required there. It was late when they finally returned to the residence. Nathan turned to Douglas. I suppose I should take it that you will not be continuing with us to the coast? I will certainly escort you and your family to the coast if that is your wish. After all, we have a contract. Tell me, however, what the caravan is carrying. What is its main cargo? You know what it is. It's mainly grain, corn, leather, and weapons. If there is to be trouble, what do you think will be in short supply? Another thing, you have heard the plans I have for this place. Do you think it will be a good place to do business from? Well, of course, once war and plague arrive, then famine and death soon follow. Grain will be needed for bread, leather for boots, and clothing and weapons for the fighting men. If you follow through with those things I heard today, then yes, this will be a very good place to live. I can see a man doing very well here. I must admit some of your ideas are somewhat radical, but I see no reason why they would not work. In fact, a lot of them are so good, I'd be surprised if they didn't. Good. I wish to purchase the entire caravan. All the goods, the animals, the tack. The whole lot. Lock, stock, and barrel. Name your price. I trust you. You would not try to rob me. If you wish to stay, you are welcome to one of the abandoned houses in the merchant's quarter. Have a think. Talk it over with the other merchants. Let me know tomorrow. Nathan was astounded. The whole caravan? Everything. Everything. Don't worry. If what I fear could happen does happen, we'll need every scrap of food, every piece of leather, and every weapon we can lay our hands on. As for the money, there is more than enough in the town treasury. Oh, I'll need all the guards as well. Nathan threw back his head and laughed. I can see this place becoming a major trading center with the caravans going north, especially if you take out the bandits in the mountains. If you were to take control of the mountains and add them to your territory here, then run patrols through the gap, well, the people would stay here and trade, knowing that they could travel south in safety. If you were also to do as you suggested earlier and run patrols out into the countryside to ensure the peasants could have safe access to the markets, then yes, I can see this place becoming the center of trade for the entire area. You would of course put several lords' noses out of joint, but I do not think that would overly concern you. No, it would not. However, I do not wish to totally alienate them, as I would not wish them to band together against me. I am not one of them, but I have had the temerity to marry her ladyship. The fact that we love each other has nothing to do with it. Some of them will be looking for an excuse to put me in what they consider to be my place. I must use some discretion in what I do. I do intend to clear out the bandits, once I have laid the foundations of our defense here. As for the patrols, I intend to start them by the end of the week. I really do need more men, though. My old company would be the ideal men to start with. I will send a messenger and see if they are available. I'm sure a lot of them would welcome a job this far south. I'm sure that they would. Will you send a message through the church? Probably. They are the most reliable messengers out there. The trouble is finding them. The last time I saw them was when I left them in a small town belonging to Baxter Hardacre, Pomphis, or some such name. I can't really remember. I'll ask the bishop and see what he can suggest. That sounds like a plan. I'll think about what you have said. I'll let you know tomorrow. Douglas then went to find the bishop. Bishop Radcliffe, I need to send a message to my old company. The problem I have is I can't remember the name of the place where they were, nor can I even be sure they are still there. Have you any idea how I would get a message to them? You don't make things easy for yourself, do you? Laughed the bishop. I'll send a message to my fellow bishops. However, I cannot guarantee their discretion, or even if the message will get through. Where, roughly, were they last? They were in the service of Baxter Hardacre, near a place called Pomphis or Pumice. Something like that. I've been through so many, that the names just tend to blur after a while. I understand. The bishop serving Baxter Hardacre is called Waldorf. He's a good friend of mine. I'll ask him and see what he can do. Thanks. I appreciate your help. My son, after what you have done for us, I'm only too glad to be of some help. Douglas nodded and went to find Isabel. Dinner was ready. As they ate, they told each other of their day. Douglas spoke of his plans for the town. He told her of offering to purchase the entire caravan from Nathan. Good. I was speaking to his wife. She's looking forward to settling down somewhere. This is as good a place as any, and if what you are planning comes off, then this is going to be one of the best anywhere. She then told him of her day. She had spent it talking to the merchants' wives. They had heard what he had told their husbands, and wanted to know if they could believe it. She had reassured them it was true. She had also taken a tour of the town and been appalled at how many orphans and street urchins there were. She had decided she wanted to open a school for them, teach them to read and write, and also a trade. I will of course need to feed them. I have taken over that old building near the main market. I have spoken to some of the women, and they have agreed to run the kitchen for me. We'll supply the food, and they'll prepare the meals. The children will be fed in the morning, before lessons, and again at midday. I've decided to open the schools to all who wish to learn. With any luck, it should reduce crime and give the people hope. I think that's a wonderful idea. The only thing I worry about is where are you going to get enough teachers? I also hope that some of them will not just use your school as an excuse not to work. We'll just have to see how it goes. I'll wander around to some of the craftsmen and merchants to see if they are willing to take on some apprentices. Isabel smiled at this. They both went to bed happy. Their joy could be heard all over the house. The following morning, Nathan and the other merchants did agree to sell Douglas the caravan. Several of them took houses in the merchants' quarter. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. The harvest was gathered, the ferry was built, and grasses were cut for fodder. The palisades were replaced, and the moats were begun. There was a definite shortage of labor. Word seemed to spread. Soon more and more people started arriving. Some to escape trouble to the north, some the plague to the south. A quarantine section was established for the people from the south. Some did not like it, but it was simple. If they wished to remain, then they would stay in the quarantine area. Most stayed. It was festival time. The harvest was in and was stored in the barns, safe within town walls. Plans were made for the celebration. The celebration was a great success. The people were happy, well fed and safe. Everyone was looking forward to what the future would hold. Douglas stood on the balcony looking out over the town. He had just been in a council meeting, discussing what they were going to do next. They were going to found farms on the far side of the river, train more guards, and start regular patrols around the local area and between themselves and the nearest towns. They were also going to have to take control of the mountains at Balaam's Gap. Isabel came up and put her arm around him. "How are you feeling?" she asked, somewhat stunned. "I cannot believe that just a few months ago I was a mercenary, living day to day with no real cares or worries, except for where my next contract would be. Now I'm married to a beautiful woman, I am lord of a town, and I am responsible for all those within this region. It's a lot to take in." She smiled and said, "I know. I was faced with the prospect of being the plaything of some odious freak, or being incarcerated in a convent. I'm now married to a wonderful man, who I know will do whatever it takes to protect me, or our children." "Children?" Isabel's smile grew even wider as she nodded to him. "By next spring you'll be a father." He whooped with joy, picking his wife up and spinning her around. This is wonderful news. I can't wait to tell everyone. I really am the luckiest man alive. They stood together basking in the joy of their news, happy and content in their world. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.